Hello everyone, welcome to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. Tonight we're following a story that begins with worry and ends with relief, anchored by two names you know well, Hazal and Çağatay Ulusoy. Over the past few weeks, Hazal has let small hints slip that life has been heavier than usual, headlines that hurt, stories about people and animals in distress, the emotional weight that sensitive hearts carry even when the cameras are off. She jokes about it at times, in that quick, self-deprecating way that makes her so beloved, but anyone paying attention could sense the undertow. When you care as deeply as she does, even faraway events have a way of setting up camp in your chest. Friends say that in recent days she's been trying to create islands of calm, morning walks, early offline hours, a kind of quiet discipline that protects the spirit. That would be wise for anyone, but for Hazal there is another reason to slow the pulse. She is getting ready to welcome a daughter. Preparing for a baby changes the architecture of every day. Rooms are measured, priorities reordered, time divided into before she arrives and after. Even joy can sharpen the senses into something like vigilance. You notice heat where you never noticed heat. You listen for sounds you used to ignore. And then came the scare. According to those close to the actress, it started like so many household mishaps, a pan warming for a little too long while a mind wandered across a dozen tabs, messages to answer, a list to rewrite, a headline that invited a sigh. The smell came first, then the sting in the eyes, then the soft but terrifying bloom of orange when oil met air. It wasn't dramatic in the movie sense, it was the kind of moment every home hopes to avoid and almost every home has brushed against. Hazal did what people do when a sudden fear meets a small space, pulled back, blinked, coughed, looked for the quickest way to make a wrong thing stop. What happened next turned a bad minute into a better story. Living nearby, Çağatay Ulusoy noticed the ripple of commotion that apartment buildings translate into instinct, a faint alarm through a wall, a neighbor's hurried footsteps, that unmistakable edge to the air. If you've ever lived close to others, you know how this works. You don't need an address to know something is off, your body knows first. He went to check. Doors were opened, voices steadied, the stove was cut, the heat denied its fuel. Someone pulled a small extinguisher off the hook and took the sting out of the smoke. Security was called, a window lifted, air traded air. In the end, what could have been a story about damage became a story about timing, presence, and the usefulness of a calm tone at exactly the right second. There were no injuries. The kitchen will be fine. There are few things in a home that can't be rescued by a sponge, a coat of paint, and a day with the windows open. The nerves take longer, of course. Fright has a way of lingering, especially when you're already carrying more than your share of feeling. But if there is an upside to an unwelcome adrenaline spike, it is the clarity that follows. Sometimes life delivers a rehearsal that pushes you to tighten every loose screw in the house. By the next morning, Hazal had done exactly what you'd expect from a woman who understands that prevention is love by another name. A fresh extinguisher was placed within easy reach. A timer that insists on being heard was set to bossy. The stove's knobs got bright little caps that make wandering fingers and wandering thoughts less dangerous. She ordered a magnetic list for the fridge, before you leave and before you sleep, the kind of list that makes practical magic out of ordinary caution. It is not glamorous, but it is how peace is made inside four walls. And there was something else, something not practical at all. Relief can loosen tears you didn't know you were holding. When the air cleared and the room returned to being only a room, Hazal reportedly sat down, put a hand on the soft curve of her future, and let a few minutes pass in silence. That's what gratitude looks like when no one is watching. The difference between what if and we're okay is a whole universe. For longtime followers of these two, there is an added note of meaning here. Hazal and Çağatay Ulusoy share a professional history that shaped a generation of viewers. They know the strange intimacy of performing feelings for an audience while quietly protecting their own. The public is used to seeing them in carefully lit frames, moving through scripted problems toward scripted solutions. But the best stories are sometimes the unfilmed ones. Neighbors acting like neighbors, friends reading a room and choosing steadiness over spectacle, a simple check-in that matters more than any grand gesture. There will be people who ask why this moment should be told at all. Because small scares are universal, and universals make good maps. There is a mother in every city who has stared at a pan and felt her heart kick. There is a friend in every building who knows the sound of trouble and decides to bridge the distance between "not my problem" and "I am here." There is a country, ours, that has known too much worry lately, and sometimes the remedy is not a triumph but a tiny success, a switch flipped, a breath slowed, a hand on a shoulder that says, without making a speech, "It's all right." Fans, as always, reacted with the speed and tenderness that make this community feel like a village. Messages poured in, advice born from experience, kitchen hacks, jokes about the smoke detector that thinks toast is a dragon, and notes from people who remember their own close calls with a kind of affectionate embarrassment. Not all attention is kind, but this wave was. Perhaps because there is no villain in this story. There is only life, which is to say there is only us. Distracted, devoted, learning as we go. It would be easy to pretend that this tidy resolution erases the heaviness that began our story. It doesn't. Hazal is still one of those rare public figures who reacts like the rest of us to the ache in the world. That won't change, even when the nursery is finished and the little clothes are folded into small, impossible stacks. Compassion is not a faucet you switch off, and the headlines do not pause out of courtesy. But the scare taught something worth keeping. There is a difference between carrying the weight of the world and letting the world cross your threshold. Doors exist for reasons other than decoration. You choose what comes inside. The most beautiful line in all of this is the one that points forward. A baby is on the way. That sentence converts every room in a house into a promise. It revises the meaning of morning and turns evenings into soft inventories of what is ready and what still needs doing. It organizes family into a merry army of helpful opinions. It tucks laughter into the corners. It adds a second heartbeat to every quiet moment. If ever there were a time to turn bad luck into a rehearsal for safety and gratitude, this is it. As for Çağatay, the praise he deserves is simple and unadorned. He was close by, he paid attention, he acted without fanfare, and then he let the day return to its rightful owner. That's what good neighbors do and what real friends learn, how to appear when needed and disappear when the crisis has been folded back into ordinary time. It doesn't make a headline in the lurid sense, but it makes a point that's better. Fame is not an exemption from the responsibilities of proximity. There will be countless other days. The list on the refrigerator will fade at the edges from too many fingers. The timer will become background music. The baby will arrive and redefine busy so completely that a quiet kitchen will feel like luxury. Somewhere down the line, Hazal will laugh about the night the pan thought it was a comet and promise her daughter she'll teach her how to cook the right way, the slow way, the safe way. Somewhere down the line, this story will shrink into a family anecdote that ends with "and then everything was fine." Until then, may the house stay boring and the world stay at the door. May kindness continue to move faster than smoke. And may every small scare end the way this one did, without harm, with lessons learned, and with the people involved just a little more certain of how much they matter to each other. Thank you for being here. If you enjoy stories told with care and context, stay with us for the next chapter. There is more good news ahead, and it's wearing tiny shoes.